Hey friends, welcome to another edition of the Tennis and Bagels podcast. It is me here, Vansh, and I'm joined by a really special guest here today. One we've had on the show before when it was him and Owen, but I'm honored to have Jack Edward here from On the Line Tennis Podcast. How are you doing today, Jack?
I'm really good, thanks, Vansh. Honoured to be here. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Very keen to talk US Open draws. Let's do it.
Awesome, let's get right into it. So we're going to start with the men's singles draw, and we're going to go quarter by quarter. The qualifiers have been placed, so now we can just sort of work our way into it. Give us your, We're going to talk about our thoughts. We're going to make some predictions. We're going to see how this goes. This should be fun.
This is my first look at the qualifiers as well for everybody at home, so I'm getting a little bit excited at this too. So it's going to be a surprise to me. I'm excited.
Perfect. Yeah. It was. So I mean, if you look in Medvedev's section here, obviously you have Felix as his potential quarterfinal, but what sort of stands out to you in this section if we just look at the first 32 players here?
Yeah. So the first thing that I've been talking about when I look at this quarter is kind of Medvedev's chances, what he could have problems with. The first immediate thing that jumps out to me is 16th seed in the fourth round, RBA potentially, or it could be Kyrgios. Either or would be nightmarish for Medvedev. And then you've also got PCB in the quarterfinals. RBA and PCB, particularly two players that he's struggled with historically because they're the flat backhands. It kind of takes away his advantage a lot of the time. They would be two super difficult matches if he does have to play them. So he's kind of been given a pretty bogey draw, considering that's 12th seed and 16th seed, I would say. And obviously Kyrgios as well. You don't really know what you're going to get there. So yeah, the first thing that strikes me is that Medvedev's got a tough draw match. Basically.
Yeah, especially if we compare it to Nadal, the number 2 seed. I feel like his path to the final is a lot tougher.
Yes. Yeah,
and
I'd say so for sure.
Good point about PCB as well, who beat him at the Olympics last year in Tokyo, and then they played again in Cincinnati, and that was rather one-sided. But I just feel like that's been a difficult matchup for Daniil in the past, especially the consistency from the backhand to backhand, and just PCB makes you come up with something really good to get over the line. And I agree about Nick as well. I'm interested to see that first match against Tanasi because obviously we know they're really, really good friends, and not just doubles, but since the juniors. And I don't know, I'm kind of thinking, what if, I'm interested to see Kyrgios against a good friend of his. Will he be able to have that same ruthlessness when he comes out on the court? And will he be able to, obviously Tanasi, I think, knows his serving patterns and tendencies pretty well, and so does Nick, but there's a lot of pressure on him this time around at the US Open. He is the 4th favorite according to the betting odds. And I just wonder if that may get into his head a little bit.
Yeah, 4th favourite. Well, did not know that actually, Vanch. It's not Kokonakis so much I'm worried about. I could see him squeaking through in 5 sets, whatever. I think whatever happens, he would find a way to win.
It's the RBA match, right? That sort of makes you pause because they played last year the US Open in the first round. Obviously, very different Nick at that point, but still, it was a very sort of one-sided match. 6-3, 6-4, 6-0, and RBA out-aced him, hit the same number of winners, super metronomic, consistent from the back of the court. And it's not a matchup that I think Kyrgios enjoys. It kind of bores him.
Yeah, exactly. He gets impatient. I think you're right. You're right, Vanch. It's not actually RBA. I was going to say that RBA probably is more of a worry. But all of a sudden, Humbert is kind of picking up a little bit of form. Actually, he might have lost in the quarters today. Now I'm saying that.
Yeah, in Granby, right? In the Challengers.
Yeah, he did actually. So I did have a different opinion on this yesterday. I forgot he'd lost. Yeah, RB's got to be the worry then. You're quite right, because that was a totally one-sided affair. Kyrgios probably playing completely differently from then, to be fair. It's kind of difficult to call if they did get matched up, but yeah. Either way, I can't see anyone else going through there, bar those two, and Medvedev would struggle against either of them.
For sure. And I do think the first 2 or 3 rounds are pretty good for Medvedev. I mean, Kozlov, not really a guy with a lot of weapons. Ben Shelton's obviously been the talk of the town and since Cincinnati. So has Yibing Wu from the Challengers, kind of picking it up. Plays Vasilishvili, but I just feel like, Shelton and Kozlov and Rinderknecht, these are matches Medvedev definitely wins. The one popcorn match sort of here is JJ Wolf against Bautista Agut, because I know they played in Indian Wells, and looked like RBA was going to win rather comfortably, but then Wolf really dug in and came back at him and had match point in the end, and
Yeah,
it was quite a tussle. So
I'm definitely tuning into that one. That one will be such fun to watch for sure. The other one that obviously jumps out to me probably is Draper Rusevori. Actually, I'd really like to watch that because I can't really call it. I kind of want to side with Rusevori, to be honest, rather than Draper. I just feel that the fast conditions will be amazing for his forehand. At the same time, big server like Jack, there's a very high chance that will also benefit him too. So I would imagine high quality tennis from both players probably. I see Rusevori squeezing through, and if he were to get through, if you'll indulge me going forward a little bit, FAE, I think we've discussed this before, Vansh, that match in Australia, it was so close, and FAE maybe played a little below par. Rusevori really maybe should have had it. He was playing better tennis and won more points in the end than the Canadian. I feel like he could squeak through this time.
Yeah, I've had Rusevori as an unseeded dark horse for a lot of Masters tournaments, and just sort of in general, I just feel like he's got to break through at some point,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And he, kind of a poor man's sinner in a way, to me.
Yeah,
but I
I see that. The backhand's not as powerful for me. So not much else that's different from Sinner.
For sure. Right. And I did watch him play Draper at Queens. I was there for that match, and Draper looked really underpowered compared to Emil, but that's sort of, I know it's a different sort of setting, and British crowd really got into that one, and it was interesting. And Draper this week, I thought was going to go further, but then Mark Westler played a really good match and took him out in the quarters. But no, I think I agree with you, and I also particularly for Felix, I feel like Rusevori or Draper is pretty tough in the second round, and if he does get through that, he then has to worry about potentially Hachanov or PCB. PCB, obviously, I can chalk up the Cincinnati early round loss to just fatigue and probably just poor serving, on his part. 13 double faults is not something you see very regularly at all from him.
Mad. It was actually bizarre. It was completely out of character. I was saying this, Vanch. In his however many losses, 17 or so this year, he has chalked up 20 double faults in total. So this one match, he chalked up 13. So, I mean, in the other matches besides this one, of course, So 20 double faults in all his other matches and 13 in this one. It's very, very crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then obviously you have PCB and Team. That's another blockbuster match. But you would expect PCB to come through, pretty, just based on form. I know their head-to-head is 7-0 for Team, but it's, obviously.
Is it 7-0? I didn't know that match.
Yeah.
I could see it being quite deflating, to be honest.
I could too. And that's going to be on court 17, so it's good for those with a grounds pass.
Yeah, I noticed that. Mental.
Yeah.
But, I think Ben Rothenberg was tweeting about it, wasn't he? But there's other matches that need to go on the other court, so I don't really argue with the court bookings, the court schedulings that much, to be honest. Yeah.
But in this section, really, I do still see Medvedev coming through. I know I have some question marks about him, though, because obviously the serving in the third set against Steph when he double faulted 4 times, and just it's kind of his form in general, hasn't had a top 10 win since beating Tsitsipas in the Australian Open semis.
There was for me, Van, sorry, just I remember him playing against Dimitrov last year at Indian Wells when he had a crazy tear of double faults and he didn't really know what was going on with his serve in the second and third sets, and he kind of just totally imploded his way to a loss there. That loss there was just some fireworks going on, and he let it get to his head, I guess. And he kind of righted the ship after that. It was really, really bizarre that he let it kind of affect him, but we have seen that sort of thing from Daniel before.
We have.
I don't know. It's not worrying me, is all I mean. And Tsitsipas played a good enough match to hold serve for the rest of the match, so it was literally just one blip, and that was the third set gone, basically. So I don't know if I'm too worried, basically.
Same. I see a PCB and Medvedev quarterfinal here. That's my pick here.
That's also my pick, and I would pick Daniel to squeeze through.
Same. I have the same. I guess we can move on to the bottom quarter of the top half.
Yeah.
With Tsitsipas and Ruud obviously being slated to play each other in the quarters. I think let's start with Tsitsipas' section here because I think his first two rounds are pretty comfy, manageable, I'd say, right?
Yeah, weird to see Sonego unseeded, but
For
yeah,
sure.
I would still say so. Sonego could maybe cause a few problems, but nah,
Yeah.
Tsitsipas should get through. I would say
Yeah.
the biggest problem for Tsitsipas is the third round,
It's,
probably against Cressy, where
yeah.
on a big, quite hard court like the US Open against Tsitsipas's backhand. Yeah, it actually could be anybody's game there. I think Tsitsipas would have to play really well. I honestly could see him getting beat on a coin toss.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That is a match that will really challenge his return of serve. And I know they played each other in 2020, but that was a different Cressy, and he was just a qualifier, and now he's seeded. So that's big. But also Cressy, I feel like it's very 50-50 with his matches because if he racks up 15 double faults, all of a sudden he's not winning. So
yeah. So he might not even make it there exactly, Vanch. That would be the biggest problem for Tsitsipas. I think he might, to be honest, if Nishioka made it through ADF, I see Nishioka as quite a decent matchup against Cressy, and that could be a problem for him. But there's obviously Nishioka's spike in Washington could be a one-off. I've got no idea really. He might not make it that far either. It's quite a lot of ifs there. Cressy being the biggest one, but yes, Tsitsipas generally for me would get through. 9 times out of 10, maybe not as much as that, but should get through.
Yeah, I would agree. If we move ahead to your man, Andy Murray, playing against Francisco Cerundolo.
I can't help myself getting really excited here, Vanch, because not only should Andy be the favourite in this match, he should be the favourite in this match. I absolutely stand by that. Cerundolo is a really good player. He's fantastic actually on clay in particular, and he still can be effective in hard courts just given the size of his forehand. But Andy should be the favourite. If he's not playing well and he loses to Cerundolo, then we can kind of just say that's fine. We'll let bygones be bygones. He wasn't turning up to this US Open. That's fine. If he turns up and he plays a brilliant match and he gets through, I fancy his chances to get through to the fourth round.
Interesting.
Sure.
This time I will say you're a little more optimistic than I am about Andy, which is good because last time I think I was the one who was more optimistic. But I think Cerundolo, man, he's got one of the biggest forehands in the game right now, and it just. And if that thing is firing and he's playing, anywhere near how he was playing during the clay stretch or in Miami, or even in the match against Rafa at Wimbledon, and obviously as of late, I know Andy's been struggling a little bit with cramping and fitness and the heat. And if it's hot, this is going to be during the day. But I do think these faster courts, I do think they can help Andy.
It should be good for Andy.
Because I thought the match that he played against Tsitsipas, if we take all the other theatrics out of it, I do feel like that was the best I've seen Andy play in a long time. Especially for the first 3 sets against Stefanos there.
My take on this, and I want to hear your take as well, Vanch. I'm really intrigued. But if I were to compare Tsitsipas and Cerundolo as players, Cerundolo's got a really, really good forehand, just like Tsitsipas. So the biggest difference for me is that he's a great returner. So I feel like that could be a worse matchup for Andy in that he could claw his way into service games where Tsitsipas maybe didn't. And I don't know if that's in fact, I've just said that and that's made me a little bit more scared of him. I don't know if there's more to it though. Are the forehands equivalent? Is Cerundolo's forehand a little weaker and Andy might be able to break him down from the baseline? It's quite difficult to know going into the match, and I could see him overpowering Andy if he's having a good day. I don't know how you feel.
Those are some good points. I think Stefanos is just a bit more diverse. He can come up with some good angles, and he can really sort of attack at will on that side. Whereas Cerundolo, I think his forehand is very potent, especially cross court and down the line, and it can be a heavy shot, but it's also one that's maybe prone to a little bit more. It's a little bit of flatter of a ball, so I think that might help Andy, especially if he's able to blunt the pace better on his backhand, or he's able to find a good read on the return of serve. Just I think changing directions and just getting clean cuts at the return will be key for Andy, just to keep that forehand at bay and make Cerundolo dig out low balls or challenges sort of north-south movement as opposed to east-west laterally on the baseline. So that'll be interesting. I think I'm gonna say Andy just about squeezes through here.
Okay.
And then I do like his chances against Millman or Nava.
I think Millman's a good matchup for him.
I think Berrettini worries me maybe even more, just because I think he's going a little under the radar, and I know he hasn't looked the same since he won Queens. But if I look at his draw, I see a lot of clay quarters in the first 3 rounds. Jari, I think, might be the most dangerous of the 3 because he's gone through qualies, and he looks a bit more revived. But obviously, we'll have to see in the level of competition. Matteo is still more complete than Jari and Andujar and some of these guys. It's that Murray-Berrettini match that's...
I know. I still fancy Andy's chances because I think he squeezes into a few more return games than he would have in Queens, Stuttgart. Even where did he play Berrettini? I think it was Stuttgart.
Yeah.
And I mean that was a close match. Like they had a very good chance there despite the injury woes in the third set. Sure. I don't underrate Jari as well, but I see Berrettini getting through the first 2 rounds. I've not seen Gary's record on a hard court, but I can't imagine it's particularly decent. Would be my guess, despite the good serve, which makes me think his ground strokes maybe aren't built for this surface. Then the same with the second round as well, Andujar or Echeverry. So, Berrettini, Andy. I'm still picking Andy, I think, by a whisker, Vanch, but
okay.
It's probably, to be honest, it's about 50-50 if he gets through to the... Well, that's decent odds, obviously, if I'm getting through to the 4th round, but about 50-50 for me.
Yeah, I think Andy will really take that at this point.
Yeah, I definitely would, yeah.
Yeah. I would love to see it. But I'm going to stick with Berrettini to get to the 4th round. And in the bottom half, I guess if you look at Ruth's section, I think this is a really, really good chance for Taylor Fritz. I think the toughest opponent that I see here is Van de Zandschulp in the 3rd round.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was thinking too.
And then potentially I look at Paul or Korda because, obviously Ruud, I mean, I'm not going to underestimate the guy, but fast hard courts with Tommy Paul playing this well. Korda, I know he's been kind of on and off with his injuries and stuff, but he's strung together a couple of good wins now in Cincinnati. I beat Tiafoe for the first time there.
Yeah, he's so
good. Looking better physically, and so I think that's what it's about because I want to see a match between Paul and Korda in the 2nd round. And
I mean, Korda for me is equivalent to your Rusevori take in that he is one of the guys that's going to make a big break. He's going to do it at some point. Could be this tournament, could be the next slam. It wouldn't surprise anybody basically because his game is good enough that he should be making deep runs at tournaments. Not regularly, maybe, but at least the odd deep run. There really hasn't been anything that's blown me away. In fact, I can't think of a deep run he's made at anything bar 250. I could be wrong.
2 slams.
Could be wrong about that.
2 slam 4th rounds, one at the French and one at Wimbledon.
Yeah, that kind of went under my radar. Actually, that's still decent, obviously. 100%. I mean, we could see him in the 4th round for sure, and it's kind of difficult to call if Fritz would prefer Korda or Paul. It's kind of much for a muchness. They're both really, really great players, but I just think Fritz's level is so high at the moment. He should see his way through to the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
So
he's definitely my pick to get through. Obviously, Kyle Edmund, good to see him back after all his injuries against Kasper, but probably a bit too much too soon for him.
Definitely.
Haven't seen Richthofen play since Wimbledon. So no idea how he's going to look, but obviously he would like these kind of courts, but we'll see.
I don't even think I've watched him play on anything besides grass. Vansh.
Yeah, I don't think this is a really good matchup for Stan to play Moutet. Moutet is 2-0 against him. And
they played at the French, right?
They played in the first round of the French, and Moutet won in 5.
Yeah.
So,
No, I think it could happen. Maybe, Vansh. I don't know. Stan was good against Andy. It just, he seems to have one good match in him per tournament and then kind of fades. So I could see him going through. Yeah, Van de Zandschulp though for sure. If just talking about him against Taylor, that's by far his biggest threat. I just think he gives him a different look. He gives him something that other players don't, just in his ability to get to the net frequently. Amazing forehand, just like Taylor actually. His forehand is seriously good when he's playing it well. But it's just his ability to kind of craft the point and finish it off in a way maybe other players aren't as good at, and it could just be the different look required to give Taylor some trouble. So that's the one that worries me the most.
Yeah, I guess shout out to Brandon Holt who qualified. He's from It's from USC, so I have to give him a shout out there. So go
Okay, cool.
go Trojans, and also he's Tracy Austin's son, so that must be nice.
Is he? All right.
Yeah, so
I didn't know that.
we have an All-American clash there with Fritz and Holt, and I think their parents actually played each other on the tour too. So that's
All right.
yeah. So that's
cool.
that's a nice win for him. But yeah, I think my Fritz is my pick to get out of here into the quarters.
Through to the semis, you mean?
Yeah, I have him in the quarters right now, and potentially now. Then I have Tsitsipas and Berrettini, and I haven't seen those two play on a hard court since 2019 Australian Open when they played round 1, when Berrettini was unseeded, and Tsitsipas won that match, but it was a really tight 4-setter in a sort of a 4th set tiebreak. It was before he beat Federer and he went on the RBA to get to his first semis. But how do you think that matchup will play out on a fast court like this?
It's a tough one, but actually, despite Tsitsipas's returning weakness, we call it a weakness, but actually it's all relative. He's still fairly decent on return. I'd give him the edge there by a fair amount. I see 4 sets or so to Tsitsipas.
Yeah, as well. And I haven't seen Berrettini hasn't beaten a top 10 player in a major yet, and he's lost his last 10 matches against top 10. And I feel like Tsitsipas with his transition game and his forehand will be able to find the Berrettini backhand quite easily in baseline rallies. And
that's basically the consistent theme from any top tenor playing him, right? Like that tends to be the play. Like they can find a way to exploit that backhand pretty much every time.
For sure. So I'm still going to pick Tsitsipas to get through to the quarters. Obviously, it's a good mental barrier for him if he gets past the 3rd round because he hasn't done that yet. Yeah. Had really tough losses the last couple of years to George and Alcaraz, who I'm sure we'll get to later. But Fritz and Stefanos, they played a really good match in Australia this year. And Fritz came back from 2-1 down. Fritz was up 2-1. Steph came back from 2-1 down and won at 6-4 in the 5th.
And, good, that one.
And I'm going to go a little bold here. And I'm going to say, because I know Fritz has come a long way in the last 1 year. Obviously, a bunch of wins, especially at Indian Wells. The last 2 times he's played. Australia 4th round, Wimbledon quarters. His hard court record, you can look at it the last 1 year. It's a step up in level. I feel like he's moving better. That's a big thing for him, and he's going after the forehand. He's always had a great backhand, but his forehand is doing consistent offensive damage in big situations, and obviously he has a great serve. So he's got the complete package, and I feel like with the US Open crowd, and with Tsitsipas feeling some pressure to get to that semifinal, I could see Fritz getting through to the semis here and facing Medvedev. That's what I have.
Yeah, it's interesting, Vansh. I also picked Taylor. And I kind of realised, I was talking to Damon Kust about this yesterday, and he put it quite well, that Taylor Fritz seems like quite a bold pick at first until you realise pretty much everybody's picking Taylor to get through. I think everybody's kind of in the same boat, Vansh. Yeah. Everybody feels like he's playing amazing tennis.
For me, he's a top 10 player right now. I mean, he's 10 in the race, and he didn't get any points for his Wimbledon run, and he missed 2 months of the clay court season. Yeah, he's top 10. So
yeah, for sure.
So for me,
good point actually. Yeah, his points are stacked at the moment. I guess like he's been showing amazing runs at every tournament he's played. Basically, like he's not playing as many.
And I felt like he played. 3 wins over Rublev in that time, and he's also beaten. Also, that first set against Medvedev. I mean, could have gone his way, and it was very very tight. And so I just. Yeah, I see Medvedev beating Fritz, though, in the semis.
Yeah.
And getting to the final. And so that about does it for the top half. So let's go on to the second.
Medvedev into the final. I like it, Vansh. That's what I agree with you there for sure.
Yeah. I guess now we get to the quarter of Hurkacz. And
And Alcaraz as well.
And Alcaraz's, this is Alcaraz's quarter, and Hurkacz would be his potential quarterfinal. But if you look at Hubie's section, I feel like he didn't get a very favorable draw here because
not at all.
Oscar Otte is one of those guys who's definitely going to mix up a lot of things and make Hubie earn every point and create on his forehand. And the service motion is so hard to read with Otte, and but the thing is, Otte has not played in 2 months, and he's defending 4th round points here, so it's possible Otte just comes out and he's not the same player, but.
Apparently he was playing Bundesliga matches for a while, so he has had some practice, to be fair. He's not just been totally out.
I didn't know that. That's good.
Yeah, he used to do that, I guess, before he became a player that actually makes money from the tour, I guess. But he obviously has some sort of affinity with that part of German tennis, so he still does it. So yeah, he's still been getting practice, and he will be dangerous definitely for her catch. There's similarities for sure. Like he likes to come forward when he can as well. Her catch should have the edge on serve, to be fair.
Yeah.
But it gets really sticky. I think in the third round in particular, Manarino.
I'm not as worried about Ivashka because I feel like that's actually the matchup that Hubie likes, because I think he'll be able to redirect, absorb pace, and just Ivashka's power is not going to bother him. But I feel like Manarino with his craftiness, Manarino really took him apart in Australia this year. And as we speak,
Manarino loss, wasn't it?
Manarino is in the final of Winston-Salem, but he's won his matches very comfortably actually this week, all straight sets. And even Musetti has caused him some problems. Beat him in Rotterdam earlier this year, and Musetti and Goffin, I mean, two players who are tricky. So
yeah, I'd never ever have picked Musetti to beat him on an indoor hard court, to be honest.
Yeah,
Goffin, I'd feel more scared about. I could see Goffin beating Musetti. I'd probably pick him as the favourite there. Manarino or Goffin, I think, would be dangerous. He would probably want Goffin out of those two. I think Manarino's just a nightmare to play, basically. And you're quite right. He got totally unstuck in Australia. It was really, really worrying for him. So if he does come through that, I mean, there's no guarantee he gets through that. In the fourth round, I wouldn't make him the favourite. I feel like he'd be a little bit worn down. And if he has to play Sinner, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. If he has to play Sinner, I probably would make Sinner the favourite. Not just because he's tired. I'm willing to talk about why Sinner is such a favourite in my head at the moment. He's playing great tennis on a faster court. We saw it at Wimbledon. It's a little bit different, obviously, at Wimbledon. He's maybe able to pick the ball up better than other players off the low bounce. But I just feel when it's a court that's as quick as this, like he can blow people off the court, and I don't really see him having any problems getting to the fourth round where her catch isn't a guarantee. So for me, Sinner's the favourite to get through to the quarterfinals. Yeah,
that was one of the biggest takes that I had as soon as the draw came out without the qualifiers. I felt like Sinner should be a good bet to get to the quarters because Altmaier, Martinez, he's going to have to be careful to win these matches in straight sets and make sure they're not overly complicated. Dimitrov hasn't been in great forms.
I trust him to do that, Vansh, definitely.
Yeah, Dimitrov not been in great form. Brandon Nakashima. Yeah, I mean, I could see a Sinner Hurkacz fourth round, or a Sinner someone else in that section because like you said, Hubie obviously has some nightmare opponents he has to get through. So he's my pick out of this section.
It's interesting, Vanch, because if Manarino were to get through her catch, I feel like Sinner is the kind of player that can deal with Manarino better than other players. He's one of those guys that's able to get underneath the ball better than most, doesn't hit it flat on either wing, should be able to find his way past Manarino. I don't know what their record is, to be fair, but I would imagine he'll have the edge on a court like this. So
yes, and I think this is the best court for Manarino to play Sinner. And they played each other in Cincinnati, and it was in Canada actually, and it was 2-6, 6-4, 6-2, something like that for Sinner. He actually did struggle, but that was Sinner's first back on a hard court in a long time. So I do think Sinner will get through it pretty comfortably actually. So
so do I. Yeah.
Good point on those low shots. I particularly love his low backhand because he gets down so low and he uses his wrist so well. So it's great. It's great technique.
I actually think there was an ATP piece where they were saying for the year he puts more topspin on the ball than any other player on the backhand. Yeah. Maybe doesn't hit it as big as your Basilashvilis and stuff like that, but he spins it so much more than any other two-hander, basically.
Yeah.
It's almost akin to a one-hander. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So. And I like the evenness off of both wings as well from the baseline with the forehand as well holding up. So I like this, but then you obviously in the other section you have Alcaraz's section with Sebastian Baez in the first round. That's
I know. Yeah, Jeffro was talking about, he was lamenting that Baez had been drawn Alcaraz in the first round. It's such a shame.
Yeah, shame for Jethro, but I do see Alcaraz getting through that pretty comfortably.
Yeah.
Especially Baez is on a 6-match losing streak or something like that. So
is that all hard courts, I guess, or all not clay courts?
Yeah, non-clay courts. I mean, if this was on clay, I think it would be much tighter. But yeah, and then obviously the name that stands out to most people in the third round is Coric, who, if he plays like how he did in Cincinnati, does have the kind of weapons to beat Alcaraz. But my question is he going to continue serving the way he has? 126 mile per hour, and with the shoulder coming off the shoulder, and that kind of consistency in a
That's
best of
how we all
five.
feel, yeah.
It's and I actually do think Brooksby
Yeah.
can be a little bit tricky for him in the second
definitely.
round.
It's not a good matchup.
It's not, because Borna's going to have to create a lot on his forehand, and he's going to have to, Brooksby is going to throw all different kinds of junk balls at him. He's going to get almost everything back. He's going to.
Yeah.
He has a massive edge on the serve, but it's apart from that.
That's about it. Rewind a year ago, I'm sure everybody remembers the 6-1 set that Brooksby dealt to Djokovic. It's a similar matchup. Borna's got quite a similar game to Novak, just with that backhand solidness and able to sort of do whatever he likes with it at times. That's not going to cut it. He's going to have to do something else against Brooksby, and that could really be difficult for him to find a way through.
Yeah,
which is interesting because I don't think Brooksby's necessarily going to cause Carlos any troubles. So it's quite difficult to choose who goes through, because I feel like Coric would. It's kind of like a trifecta, I guess. Cause I feel like Borna could cause Alcaraz problems.
Yeah,
and Brooksby would cause Coric problems, etc. Basically, so it's quite difficult for me to call who goes through.
Yeah, I'm just gonna take Alcaraz just because of he's coming back to the U.S. Open where it all sort of started for him, and I feel like these courts reward aggressive, even at times erratic tennis. But if you can really hit through the opponent, and you can just rush him, and I feel like the crowd will be behind him. And Coric's forehand and serve still a big question mark for me, and it was still only 1 week. And I do remember when he beat Federer in Halle in 2018, and then he lost in the first round of Wimbledon. It's tough with that week in between, and there's before he was totally unexpected to do any sort of damage in Cincy at all. He was 152 in the world, and now he's seeded. So it's a big turnaround so quickly.
Yeah, it's quite when the momentum is kind of you can carry that momentum. You just want to get on court every day. Yeah, it can be a big dip when you've had the result of your life. I mean, it's not to be underestimated.
Yeah, and then I also don't think Coric, even if he gets past Alcaraz, I don't think you can overlook Cilic. He has a 0-8 head-to-head against Cilic. That is not
really.
Yeah, it is. It is 8-0. And actually, the funny thing is, before he went on this run, Coric in Cincinnati, he lost to Cilic in the first round of Montreal, 6-3, 6-2. So Cilic definitely knows something we all don't, and I think it's.
Oh my god. I guess those similarities I've been making to Novak aren't as apt as I first thought then. Maybe the lack of forehand power just a little bit too damning against a guy like Marin. That's still very, very surprising, I'm going to say. That's a crazy record.
Right. Yeah, okay. But I do like Cilic to get through his section. I can see Evans being kind of tricky for him.
Yeah.
But,
I still pick Cilic in that matchup. I think Vansh just too much latent power on these courts. Definitely that Evans can only do so much about. I would say he's been in the mix before at the US Open, of course. He did have that round of 16 with Stan that 1 year.
Actually, last year he got to the round of 16, played Medvedev.
Did he?
And then 2016 he had those 2 match points against Stan in the third round. That was
good.
Pivotal moment there, but
so he's had exactly. So we can't really totally count him out, and I could see it being a difficult match. But I still want to pick Cilic. I think.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
and I have Alcaraz getting through there against Cilic and facing Sinner in the quarters.
Yeah, well, so I'm the same, but it's kind of difficult to call this one. Obviously, Yannick seems to have Alcaraz's number the last couple matches, but I'm not convinced it's quite as simple as that. And actually, in a hard court, I think I'd like to give Carlos the edge.
You know what? I do agree, because I feel like, that stat of Sinner not losing serve at all and saving 16 break points in both Umag and Wimbledon.
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised if that continues.
Yeah, definitely. It's not the same. It's not the same return, right?
It's not, and the trajectory of the balls, these lighter balls, I think are really going to help Alcaraz hit through Sinner much easier than it would be on a slow clay court or a grass court where Alcaraz just didn't look comfortable at all. So
yeah, not at all. Yeah.
So Do you
Must have been
think?
reading. It must have been reading the bounce right, Vanch, because I still kind of look at that match and I'm a
Yeah.
little perplexed that he did as badly on return as he did. But
And those even bounces on these courts are
yeah,
really gonna help him. And I feel like the serve will be more of a factor, and he'll be able to play his more well-rounded game. And
it will be close.
his senior's linear ball striking, I don't think will be as effective in this match per se.
Yeah.
So I am gonna pick Alcaraz to get through here.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. I've got them all. I've got them all on paper, just so that you know I'm not just
and I believe they played last year in Paris. And,
they did. That's the match
that's the match that Alcaraz won, and that was on hard court. So
it was great. It was like 5-4 or something like that. Alcaraz was really, really good in that match. So
yeah. But yeah, now we go to Rafael Nadal's section, and I think he'll be pretty happy with this draw right here because, Hijikata is a very good first round for him, and then Fognini and Karatsev. I mean, some people are going to be worried about Fognini, 2015, but from 2 sets to love down, but nowhere near the same player anymore.
Rafa.
So
yeah, definitely Rafa.
Although it's funny because I think Karatsev, if he plays like how he did last year, I mean, he plays that little magical run that he had in Dubai and Australia again this year, and at some point in the end last year, I just don't see it though.
No way. Way too many Fs. I think a lot of Karatsev fans have been waiting for him to have a match like that for the last 9 months or something, and it's just not happening.
It's not happening, yeah. And obviously Kecmanovic I think is a good match for Rafa as well. I just don't think he doesn't have the firepower.
No, I agree. Yeah, just a lot of consistency there that Rafa should be able to eat for breakfast, I would imagine. I like Tiafoe in this. That's exactly what I was going to say. If there was going to be an upset, Tiafoe's the man for the job, I think. And it's just, I was saying that about Tiafoe's crazy record recently, where he lost to Brooksby in Atlanta, but all the other matches were 3 sets basically that he's lost since the French Open. So he's had a lot of tight matches. He's looking for that big tournament run that he kind of deserves because he's just been in the mix every single match. He's got the game for it. Like we've seen him have amazing scalps in the past. Obviously recently as well, Kyrgios 5 match points in Washington, and Kyrgios goes on to win it. He is due a big win, whether that's just getting to the 4th round and no more. He does have the game to beat Rafa. Stand by that.
Yeah, and especially with the Arthur Ashe crowd willing him on, and you bet that'll be a night match. And he beat. Yeah, he has some good results at the U.S. Open. He beat Push Federer in 2017 to 5 sets. Obviously.
Oh yeah, it was like a second round or something.
Yeah, first round match, and then he also had the last year he made the 4th round. He beat Rublev in the 3rd round, 6-1 in the 5th.
Yeah, so he did. Yeah.
And in 2020 he lost to Felix in the next round after that.
Right. Yeah.
After beating Rublev, but that was another good match too, close 4-setter. Yeah. And he lost to Medvedev the year before. So this is his most consistent major, apart from the Australian Open run that he had in 2019 to the quarters.
Yeah.
Where there was also Rafa who stopped him. But I feel like I think he's due for the 4th round for sure. I don't like this draw for Diego. And again, Jack Sock. I feel like that's the exact kind of opponent he wouldn't have wanted. Oh.
Yeah, I know, yeah. He's going to have to hit the ground running if he's got any chance. If Seng gets through, Schwartzman should be the favourite against Seng. Popkin as well, obviously a little bit of form.
Yeah.
Tiafoe, Schwartzman, yeah, I still pick Tiafoe, but no, I pick Tiafoe there, I think. Kind of difficult to see how that matchup plays out, actually. Have you got any thoughts about that? Because I'm kind of struggling to see.
I kind of feel like if Tiafoe has to win that, it has to be in 3 or 4. Because I feel like if Schwartzman can really drag that on and Tiafoe doesn't close him out.
Yeah, fitness could become an issue.
Fitness could become an issue, and Tiafoe has this pattern sometimes of blowing leads in sets.
Yeah.
Especially from double break and break up, and it's just that one little dip in focus or concentration. And you don't want to do that against Schwartzman. I still remember in 2019 when Nadal was up 6-4, 5-1, and Schwartzman came all the way back and recovered 2 breaks. He's just such a fighter. So you can just never count him out. So I feel like he has to take his opportunities, and he has to just close Diego out and just not drop in even an ounce of focus.
Yeah, if he's on from the start, I see him getting to the 4th round. we got it. Well, I mean, we got to pick Rafa probably just by the odds, I guess. But
Yeah.
Tiafoe, I'm seriously looking at Tiafoe as a threat, and I'm not counting him completely out. Definitely, unless you think Tiafoe gets through.
No, I'm not. I'm not ready to say that yet. I definitely think.
Okay.
I definitely think Rafa is still going to win.
Yeah.
I could see
Yeah.
Tiafoe winning a set. But
The crazy stat about Rafa that John brought up, John Silk, that Rafa hasn't lost before the quarterfinals in a slam since 2017.
yep, against Jules Muller at Wimbledon. So that's yeah.
And he was close to winning that match, obviously, as well. It doesn't happen for coincidence's sake, for sure. I mean, there's a reason that he makes the quarters so regularly.
Yeah.
He's just he's on it from the word go most of the time.
Yeah, for sure. And his foot seems to be fine. The abdominal thing, I also feel like he can work his way into these matches even if he's not serving 100% right from the beginning, and he'll just get stronger and stronger as the tournament goes. So I'm not too worried about him.
Yeah.
I definitely think Cam Norrie, this is a really good opportunity for him to get to the quarters, and he's been so reliable. Almost like the Jessica Pegula of the ATP. I feel like he's really been bankable, and this is really good for him to get to the third round here. Potentially Isner or Holger Rune. I don't see him having trouble against either. I know Holger Rune pushed him in Cincinnati. They had a close 3-setter there, but definitely see Cam getting through to the fourth round. And then who else is there? I mean, Shapovalov and Rublev. That first round for Dennis against Hustler.
I know, that's a nightmare, and there's no way that it's a guarantee Shapovalov gets through to the third to see Rublev. I'd fancy Rublev's chances, not so much Shapo's. That's tough. Yeah. It's really tough.
It's tough.
It's the fact that Shapo just return-wise can be really, really erratic, barely even making returns sometimes. Guy like Wessler, you really don't want to play in the first round if that's your weakness.
Yeah.
So
for sure, and if this and Jaime Munar in the second round, I mean, he's going to make Dennis play a lot. But I feel like if these two if Dennis looks really, really on it on the return, then he's found that patch that he did against Dimitrov in Cincinnati, and who did he beat after that? Tommy Paul. Yeah. So if he finds that rich vein of form again,
he was
U.S. Open has
down in the second set.
That's right. Yeah. 6-3-4 love, insane. Yeah. And so if he finds that kind of form again, U.S. Open has always been his most consistent major.
Mm-hmm.
I believe last year he lost in the third round, but pretty much every year since 2018 he's made at least the third round. So I feel like he'll.
Yeah.
And 2017 fourth round, and 2020 quarterfinals, lost to PCB in 5. So I feel like this is a good court for him. It's fast, and Rublev, I haven't felt so good about him in a long time.
No. Yeah.
Sun Woo Kwon is kind of tricky too, and so is Gera. He'll have to be on it. So
I'm not sure I fancy Rublev to definitely get through. To be fair, if he's not on it, somebody like Gera could be a really difficult first round. Just really, really solid. Rublev has been a little bit dodgy recently, but he does tend to take care of those lower ranked opponents. Like you can pretty much rely on him to do that. So I fancy him to get to the third round. If he was to get to the fourth, I'd actually pick Cam to beat him, I think.
I do. And the Cam versus Dennis is a nightmare matchup for Dennis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously if Dennis isn't on it, to be fair, I don't fancy him to get through, to be honest, actually. So I think Cam, Rublev, I'd see him getting through. The biggest problem for me is Isner. Isner could just make a crazy run. Like he's just sort of wild cards. Like it's kind of difficult to count him out.
Yeah, it's really difficult to count him out, honestly. And he's had a lot of success here and there in North American hardcourt swing. Even in Cincinnati, he really put together a good run there, and can never count him out on these courts. Right?
The only problem is if it does go to a rally, Cam pretty much wins every time.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think max I see for Isner is the third round. I don't see him going past the third round there.
It's still a little bit iffy for me, but I pick Cam to get through to the quarters at least.
Same. I think in the interest of seeing a more competitive match, I would love to see Shapovalov get there. That's just purely based on the Rafa Dennis history. But if it's Nadal and Norrie, that would be really, really good for Rafa. I'd say that I think that's kind of the seed that he would have wanted in that section, as opposed to Shapo. But yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. Obviously, after the quarters in Australia, that was nip and tuck for a while, and actually Rafa probably shouldn't have won that match.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Man, we have the same quarterfinalists. What is we have to disagree a bit, man. This is
I think we'll probably disagree going forward. Maybe I mean we can talk about that now, right? We've kind of discussed the draw. Who do you think's actually getting through to the final and etc. Who do you think's winning?
So I'm just gonna say I think Nadal is in the semis and he's playing against Carlos.
Yeah.
And that is a difficult one for me to call, just because I'm still gonna pick Rafa. I can't bet against him.
We can disagree at one point now because I think Carlos is getting through.
You do?
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead, make the case. Make the case.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it with a ton of confidence. But from the start of the year, I said Carlos. Carlos is made for a quick, fast, hard court. I don't care how kicky his serve is on the clay. He is amazing when the conditions are fast and the ball bounces high. So if he's playing well and he got to the semis by that point, he totally could beat Rafa in 5 sets. Like, it could happen. So I'm not totally, absolutely saying it with, only because I'm not 100% sure Carlos is as in form as maybe I'd like him to be. But if he is, he could overpower Rafa. Definitely.
He definitely could, and I definitely think physically he's going to be there the entire time. Not even a question about it.
Yeah.
But I still can't bet against Rafa because of his 5-set record as of late. I think if it does go to a fifth, I could see it being one of those matches where if it goes past the 4-hour mark into the fifth, I just feel like Rafa will just find another gear, just like how he did at Indian Wells. Somehow, some way, he'll raise his level.
He hasn't actually lost.
And I feel like it's one of those matches. It could be one of those matches that really propels Carlos despite the loss. I just feel like we'll look at that loss and we'll be like, okay, that could be the start of a really incredible career, like in the majors, and winning one, and then who knows what will happen after that. But Nadal has never lost a 5-setter since 2018 Wimbledon.
Yeah,
and I mean, I don't know. I guess in the interest of being different from you, and I had Rafa right from the start, so I'll just. And it's still kind of iffy if Carlos gets there, so I'm just going to go with Rafa just because of that.
I'm not saying it with loads of confidence. Maybe I'm more manifesting, but I'll stick with Carlos. Definitely.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see though, because if Nadal has a really tough 5-setter with Carlos, how will that then affect him for the final? Will he be a bit jaded when he comes out on the court against Medvedev? It's tough to call.
I remember the last time I saw Rafa jaded in a Grand Slam final. To be fair,
yeah, same. It doesn't happen. Once he gets to the final, he's got that fantastic 22-8 record and 4-1 in US Open.
Exactly. So. Exactly. I think the closest we've seen to a dropping was Novak in 2019, right, in Australia, and that wasn't his fault. That was Novak's fault. So, yeah.
So Alcaraz and Medvedev, who's your pick there?
Yeah, well, obviously, I was going to pick Medvedev over Fritz, definitely. I would pick Medvedev there. I'd pick Medvedev there. If he's playing as well as I want him to play, this is all just hoping that he plays as well as he should play at the US Open. But yeah, serve-wise, he's got such an advantage. And Carlos still isn't the best server in the world. He should be able to get into quite a lot of Carlos's service games where other players maybe wouldn't have been able to do that. I mean, Rafa's obviously, he's not the best spot server in the world either, which is why also Carlos should be able to get into quite a lot of his service games, and that's why I'm saying 5 sets. Maybe it'll be Carlos. But yeah, Medvedev, Carlos. He's got too many advantages he's got too many advantages if he is playing his best tennis, definitely. And backhand to backhand still works. It's something that the very best in the world kind of can do against Carlos. So Medvedev to win.
Okay, I like it. I would love to see number 2 for Daniil, defending a title for the first time since Gustavo Kuerten, non-Big Four. So that's
wow.
Yeah.
Well, you got to make the case for Medvedev, Rafa. Who wins it?
Yeah, I just think the last 4 sets of that Australian Open final, tactically, Nadal was the more sound player. I know he lost the second set from 5-3 up, and I know the last 3 sets Medvedev had the love 40 and a lot of chances. But I just feel like Medvedev's weaknesses get Nadal's found a way now to really expose Medvedev's weaknesses, which is coming forward and finding finishes, particularly on his forehand and at the net with the transition game. And with the deep return position, coming in, serving and volleying, mixing it up, using his slice backhand to keep Medvedev at bay. All those tactics come into play, and when you don't have something clearly as polished, Rafa finds a way to expose that. And I just feel like in best of 5 sets, he'll have the day off from the Carlos match. He'll be raring to go for number 23. There's so much on the line, so much of experience there, still so much of a gap there. And Medvedev will really have that Australian Open final still in his head. And they played again in Acapulco after that. I just can't bet against Rafa.
The Acapulco match was mad. The level in that match was actually like insane. Rafa was scary good.
Yeah, so, and I also don't see Nadal starting out as slowly as he did in Australia.
Yeah.
At this point in his career. And he has not lost a match this year in a major, so how can I bet against that? So going to be boring. I'm picking Rafa again for the 5th time to win the US Open, but
I think it's wise, Vansh. Every time I bet against Rafa, I've regretted it. So I probably shouldn't be again, to be honest. But I'll pick Medvedev. That's my pick.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, thank you so much, Jack. This was awesome to analyze the men's draw. And I'll see you back on the other side for the women's.
Yeah, see you in a bit, Vansh. Thanks very much.